should bring them to court again. Find a way where we bring the dispute to a forum where warships and warplanes do not count. Because if we fight them in the high seas, in the sea, in the West Philippine Sea, in the rocks and in the shoals, we cannot win because they have bigger ships. They have you have the largest naval fleet in the world, the largest coast guard, and so on. So that's why I'm recommending one. We we challenge them that to submit the territorial dispute to arbitration. I mean, officially now, and then we know that China will not accept it because they know they will lose. So, but at least that's so we can tell the world that we are following the UN Charter to settle all disputes by peaceful means. No, and second, let's accept the invitation of Vietnam and Malaysia to submit the extended continental shelf overlap to voluntary arbitration and invite China. But China will again refuse because they know they will lose. But at least we'll come out with a ruling, because if the three countries will agree to submit it to arbitration, there will be an award. And that's on top of the July 2016 award. And the world will support that because that's the product of a rule of law. And then we can also, we have to change the nature of our presence in the Ayungin Shoal, because if we continue to resupply, they will also continue to block us. So what we will do is change our presence from military to civilian, because if it's civilian, UNCLOS will have an UNCLOS tribunal will have jurisdiction. So we in the meantime we maintain the ship there, but announce to the world that we will put up a lighthouse, Coast Guard substation, and a Marine Research Center to be operated by UP. And when we bring our materials to construct that lighthouse, they will stop us. And when they stop us, we go to an UNCLOS tribunal and get another award on top of the existing awards. And the more the world will support us, because the world will like to follow the rule of law. So
more lawfare. So essentially lawfare is your way forward.
We use lawfare, but at the same time, we ask the US and our like-minded countries to continue to patrol the West Philippine Sea, because then if they patrol, they always tell China, this is not your territory. This is a part of the EEZ of the Philippines. So, but we have stopped using the lawfare now. We should go back to lawfare because we cannot lose in lawfare.
Justice, what happened? Di ba ang DOJ for months has been saying that they're preparing something, especially dun sa environmental damage. Ano hanash lang ba yan? Or your understanding is that the legal foundations of the legal case is being built as we speak?
Well, I think the first thing we need to do if we file an environmental case is to come out with a marine scientific assessment to establish that the corals were destroyed not by nature but by humans. And as of now, I have not seen that study yet. And we have to
so may kapos
establish more or less the date and show that the date of the destruction, the estimated date of the destruction, coincided with the presence of the maritime militia of the Chinese vessels there. So it requires a lot of study, and my recommendation is if we don't have those kind of study, we better not file, because
dapat solid ka papasok.
Yeah. I mean, we have to have that.
Justice, speaking of our allies and friends, I'll go back to the MDT again shortly, but I mean, obviously, I'm glad that you clarified na yung mga nagsasabi na, hindi, pag wala ng mga US, everything will be fine and dandy. They seem to be completely oblivious to history, or probably intentionally oblivious. I mean, we know that the Chinese moved on the Paracels as soon as the Indochina Wars, right, really weakened South Vietnam, which collapsed eventually. They moved on Vietnam, unified Vietnam in Johnson's South Reef when the Soviet Union withdrew their support from them. So we know historically, whenever the smaller neighbors don't have a superpower backing, that's where China moves in. So they're extremely, extremely sensitive to balance of forces. And I think that's where the relevance of the MDT comes in. But before I go to the MDT issue more, I want to ask you also on the environmental issue. There are suggestions that maybe we can work with the U.S. Geological Survey or with scientists from the U.S. dun sa making sure now we have a proper canvassing of the damages that China has done, and then idikit natin ito dun sa 26 na arbitration case.
Well, we should have two studies, one to be made by an independent body, not related to the Philippines or the Americans, because they will always say this is part of the American plan. So that's what we did in the arbitration of The Hague. And then we can have also an assessment done by our UP marine scientists, so that we'll have two, no?
Exactly. So you have essentially a kind of a independent study na beyond assault, although obviously China will always question anything that doesn't go its way, di ba? Never naman sila natalo eh. Either nanalo sila or dinayaan sila. Medyo parang mga trapo din sa Pilipinas. Never matatalo mga yan. But just going back to the MDT, the reason I want to push on this is, interestingly, I don't know if I forwarded this to you, if you have seen it. So last year, the Indo-Pacific Command released a declassified paper based on the legal analysis of some of their personnel, kung saan ang suggestion nila is yung armed attack as the threshold for the MDT, medyo kailangan i-expound pa yan to cover some of the new realities on the ground. So ang sinabi nila is MDT should also apply to, quote, illegal use of force which is not limited by law to a kinetic attack, i.e. the use of munitions, but could also include non-kinetic attacks that result in death, injury, damage, or destruction of persons or objects. Obviously, if you look at this, again, this is just recommendatory, hindi ito final position ng US government, but this was the kind of a recommendation paper dun sa analysis ng Indo-PACOM. Based on that definition, losing a thumb, you know, could invoke the Mutual Defense Treaty, or do you think this is too low a threshold? Is there a midpoint between that, or do you think it's even necessary for the US to make the MDT more applicable to very aggressive, potentially fatal gray zone attack? And I mean it in a more deterrent sense, because I think people who don't know what we're talking about says, oh, sorry, Richard, gusto mo invoke MDT para magyera ng China at America ngayon? No, I'm just saying what is done is done. Unfortunately, we have to probably expel the Chinese ambassador. We can do a lot of other things or file illegal warfare. But for future, para hindi pa mag-escalate ito lalo, maybe the US has to be a little bit clearer about the parameters of the MDT or the guidelines of the activation MDT, in a sense that hindi lang siya hanggang, i.e. usage of munitions. Pwede rin siguro, I don't know, if a machete cuts off a Filipino serviceman's head, shouldn't that activate an MDT, in your opinion? I mean, this is quite tricky, isn't it?
Well, actually, the MDT has a consultative mechanism. We can meet with our American allies to consult on this issue. How do we treat this gray zone operations of China? So, but the UN Charter says there must be an armed attack for you to exercise self-defense. Okay, so we should explain the meaning of armed attack, that with the use of firearms, and then with the use of lasers, which can really also permanently blind you, because they use lasers also. And also, if it's a water cannon, if it's with a certain pressure, it can hurt you, if it can kill you if it hits your chest. So we can define those definitions as long as we say that this constitutes armed attack, the use of laser that permanently blinds, because there is a convention on the use of lasers, and China and the US and we are signatories to that, declaring it as a weapon against humanity. The use of the weapon is a crime against humanity. It's a war crime. If you use lasers that permanently blind. So that one is accepted already under international law. It's a weapon because it's in fact prohibited, just like nuclear weapons are prohibited. So we can redefine that. Lasers, water cannon that with a certain pressure. We can slowly define all of this, and then announce it to the world, and China would take notice that if they do that, then they're crossing the line.
Yun nga Justice, ako kasi I see the dilemma. If you bring the threshold too low, you may unnecessarily escalate the situation. At the same time, if the threshold is too high, kaya nga Goldilocks ang hinahanap natin dito, di ba? If the threshold naman is too high, yan ang ina-exploit ng China eh. Anything short of usage of munitions, parang green light na sa kanila yan. When in fact, parang, kasi Justice, I'm hearing a lot of people on different platforms are saying, ano bang hinintay natin, may mamatay pa? Ano ba yun? Parang i-gray zone nila. First, they'll cut off our fingers. Then they'll cut off our hand. And then they'll cut off, ganun ba yan? Like parang hinintay ba natin step by step until may mamatay?
Well,
How do you deter China making it even worse than cutting off the thumb?
yeah. Well, tama yung sinabi ng isang the former PACOM commander. He said, if the water cannon results in a death, so then we define it as anything that results in a death. No, so we have to remember that there is that principle of proportionality. If they use a water cannon, we can use a water cannon also. In other words, we cannot fire back with the cannons if they are of let's say automatic machine guns, automatic weapons, firearms. If they're only using water cannon, it has to be proportional.
Justice, do you see a situation of, I don't know, mutual active defense kung saan hindi naman yung gagamitan ng mga Amerikano munitions, but let's say, dalawa tayo ng mga Amerikano, may mga machete tayo at water guns. Pag andun yung mga Chino, sige. I mean, can we do that? I mean, both of us with the Americans having those machetes and water guns. So, walang sasalita, walang magbabarel, pero pwede na anything else, bardagulan. Can we have a mutual bardagulan together with our allies? Is that a possibility?
Well, in India they have that rule. Nobody will bring firearms in the border, in the line of actual control. But we don't have that here. But we have to bear in mind that there is that rule of proportionality. No, even if they fire a rifle at us, we cannot return fire with a missile, and it has to be proportional.
Yeah, exactly. Yun nga, I mean, I know this is sounding ridiculous kasi kaya nga last time sabi ko, dali na natin mga badyaw at moro natin kapatid para may katapat tong mga to. Justice, I want to go back to the technicalities a little bit, and then I want to go to Justice to Senator De Lima. Bukas kasi kausapin ko si Admiral Ong na lang, so I don't want to push you too much on the drones and technicality issue, but do you think the Americans also could be helpful if, together with our other friends and allies, they give us all of these inflatable fast boats? Kasi hindi naman mahal yan eh. Tsaka may ang dami nilang nire-retire mga littoral combat ships. Pwede naman nila ibigay sa atin eh. So I don't know what's holding them back. Hindi ba medyo kailangan na natin yan? I mean, they're giving also the weapons to Ukraine and Israel.
Well, we have ribs. We have these rigid hull inflatable boats. Ang problema natin, we use the standard engine, but we can buy a powerful engine in Quiapo. It's being sold there. In the yacht club, we can change the outboard with a powerful engine, and you can leave everybody behind. No, so I think we should just ask some of our congressmen to give up their pork barrel for a time,
or
so we can have we can buy powerful engines.
Or I mean, my suggestion was gamitin natin yung chopper ni ex-Bamban Mayor. May submarine team si Chavit Singson, di ba? Si Chavit Singson, di ba may submarine daw yun? I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of our friends who can lend us some of their gadgets and all of that. But yeah, I mean, yun nga, na-weirdoan ako now with all of that AFP modernization and billions going to all of these acquisitions of weapon systems, etc. Parang kulang pa rin tayo sa mga boats and all of that. But Justice, maybe isn't that probably also their own kind of a gray zone, in a sense that unti-unti lang natin inaakyat yung mga gamit natin. Parang labas tayong kawawa parati, di ba? Kasi, di ba, dati yung parang barko na parang kawawa, na parang bahay kubo lang, tapos biglang medyo may cover na sa water cannon. Ngayon naman, I mean, don't you think they're also like, iniisa-isa lang nila ine-escalates para may room for maneuver sila? So parang there's a calibrated escalation ladder.
Well,
Hindi kaya baka ganun yung strategy?
no, I don't think so. Uh, Actually, kampante tayo na this is just like another routine resupply. Uh, we will not use firearms, they will not use firearms, so we will just continue, no? Pabilisan lang. Kaya lang naglabas sila ng bladed weapons at saka pinaligiran tayo. That was the new element that they introduced, and bigla na lang na we were overwhelmed because of that, no? So we did not anticipate that. That's the shortcoming that we made, no? We did not anticipate that they would use bladed weapons.
So what you're saying, Justice, is that these were an operational failure, but not an indictment of our entire strategy. That's what you're saying. Stick to the strategy,
Yes.
eye on the ball, refine na lang, okay lang yan.
Yeah.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. We have equipment we can buy, no? Because we did not probably thought that it will be another run. They cannot stop us because we'll just continue. But they suddenly had bladed weapons, no?
Just a very serious question. Do you think jet ski will help? I mean that's what are jet skis faster than those boats? I mean, is that one of
Well, it will help, but you can only carry one or two persons. Your supplies will be a problem. Actually, we can also airdrop by plane or helicopter.
exactly,
But of
diba?
course, the problem there is if you rotate the personnel, you have to bring the people there and get the old people out, no? So you
Yun
really
lang,
need to
oo.
put them in a boat.
Uh, last point on this before we go to Senator De Lima. Justice, is it may I don't know I don't want to be